Welcome to KW Conversations, where we discuss the workforce and education issues that matter in the Louisville region. This show is brought to you by KentuckianaWorks, the region's Workforce Development Board.
All right, thank you for joining us for another episode of KentuckianaWorks KW Conversations. My name is Angella Wilson, and I am the Adult Program Director for KentuckianaWorks. Today, we are going to talk about the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and how workers can advocate for themselves using this particular department. So I would like to get started and introduce a special guest we have today. His name is Trent Findley. Trent Findley is the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Metro United Way. He is a lifelong Louisvillian. Trent is not only a leader within his organization, but within the community. He is the founder of the Newburgh Legacy Chess Club, a U.S. Chess Federation affiliate, and also the head coach of Newburgh School's chess team. Formerly a licensed financial professional, Trent is passionate about teaching financial literacy throughout the community. Welcome, Trent.
Thank you, Angella. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's really just jump right into the conversation. I mentioned that you were the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Metro United Way. Tell me a little bit, what is your job duties? What does your day look like every day?
Sure. So, like you said, I work for Metro United Way, a dynamic community impact organization. Metro United Way is a force for positive change in the community. We work to identify and address the community's most pressing problems. Those are the issues that people don't always like to talk about, and the ones that count, the ones that can't be solved overnight. I work in our equity department as Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And some of my my role itself is about providing leadership and oversight of Metro United Way's strategic direction. I am there to infuse an equity lens throughout the internal and external work led by the organization. I work alongside our Chief Equity Officer, Daryl Unseld, and some of my duties include providing oversight and consultation to the implementation of our equity statement. I facilitate and provide administrative support to our Black Male Achievement Initiative and some of the other initiatives that we have, and other partnerships that we have. I provide leadership and direction internally to our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. So I oversee that committee, and I develop and deliver diversity, equity, and inclusion training. So I help facilitate and coordinate those trainings just to make sure that our organization is committed to a culture of belonging. And I serve as a community engagement liaison as well when we're talking about working alongside our external partners. So that role is comprised of quite a bit, and perhaps one of the most important parts of my role is coordinating with HR, collaborating with HR, just to make sure that we are operationalizing equity internally.
So that actually leads to the next question I had is talk a little bit more about what that work looks like between your office and Human Resources.
Sure. So our equity work at Metro United Way actually it goes back a couple of years. We really have sort of infused a new way to go about impact, and a lot of that is comprised of HR and equity in our partnership together within the organization. We came up with revised and tried to perfect our equity statement. So that was sort of a joint project with HR and equity. But I guess to best answer your question, we collaborate on both policy and recruitment. Those are two very important elements.
Mhm.
And with policy, we both review our current policies and make sure that that they can be improved. We also think about some of the unwritten policy or new policy that needs to be implemented just to infuse equity into our organization. And then as far as recruitment, that's a big piece. We want to ensure that there is a diverse and cross-functional interview panels and interview processes to make sure that we have a diverse staff. We take a look and we look at our uniform list of questions and interviews and make sure that those are on point as far as the language. We use a common rubric for evaluating candidates. We collaborate to conduct initial phone interviews, and the equity department is in on that process as well. So the partnership between equity and HR goes very deep, but it's very, very important.
Absolutely. And as you were mentioning that, thinking about the job seeker, right? And so thinking about the job seeker and they're looking for a place to call home, it seems like trying to research the organization and seeing if they do have, what's their stance on diversity and inclusion would definitely be a good place for them to start, right? Because it lets people know in the community that you guys are being very intentional, right? That this organization is trying to be very welcoming and very inclusive. So if someone's interested in working at Metro United Way, knowing that there's a department to ensure that people are thinking about this all day long, that we want to make sure that we are tapping the best talent, and not only in recruiting, but when you come into a space, that it is an inclusive space for you. I wanted to ask you about your diversity committee you said that you have internally. How is that structured, and how are employees part of that particular committee and process?
Sure. So, like I said, I oversee our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee,
Mm-hmm.
and that is comprised of around 9 or 10 staff. And, we wanted to make sure that we have, of course, diverse representation on that committee. So as far as race, gender, cultural background, we want it to be as diverse as possible. And I feel like that we have accomplished that. That committee, we actually had a strategic planning retreat at the beginning of the year. We came up with our mission and vision as a committee. We did some strength analysis, strength opportunity analysis, and then we came up with strategic directions for the year. With those strategic directions, we have goal-related objectives that go along with those, mission-related objectives. And so we really just laid out our plan for the year to operationalize equity internally, and for this committee to be looked at as the experts when it comes to diversity and inclusion. We meet on a monthly basis, and we bring various issues and various goals and objectives to those monthly meetings, just to make sure that we're staying sort of in line with what those strategic directions are for the year.
Okay. So in this heightened time that we're in right now, right? A lot of African Americans and people of color are being asked to kind of step up and step into these conversations and participating in various committees. What would be some of the benefits, or how would you what advice would you give someone that's being asked to participate in such conversations?
Sure. So my advice would be to prepare yourself. And this goes for both organizations who are preparing to step into this work, and to answer your question, individuals. It's to prepare yourself to serve. You want to prepare for the process of having the conversations, the tough conversations. So you really want to inform yourself, educate yourself, and that's really an ongoing process. You want to prepare for the content of those conversations that you may have. And then as far as getting started, you want to make sure that you work on your language and your analysis of whatever issue that you're approaching. There are ways, and as far as ways to do that, there are key books and resources and online resources, training resources that you can take a look at. But more than anything, it's about that preparation and understanding what your goal is, and just the process it's going to take to get from where you are to where you want to be in the future, and be very clear about that.
I definitely love just the advice of preparing yourself, right? Because you are going to have some tough conversations in some openly safe spaces. And so are you able to provide some specific resources at this time? If not, be happy to provide that at the end of this conversation via a link, or put it in a comment section.
So this is an excellent place to mention our equity work in Metro United Way. On our actual site, we have an equity and justice. We have a page that is dedicated to equity and justice, and it has many, many resources there to educate yourself, just to explore, to develop just a better lens for yourself when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We also have a speaker series, Beyond Buzzwords speaker series. This past month we had Tim Wise. Before the pandemic, we had Edgar Villanueva. And then coming up next month, we've got Michael Eric Dyson coming. So those are excellent opportunities to sort of dive into that material. I also would encourage, I guess, like favorite books. The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein is an excellent resource. Stamped from the Beginning, that's an excellent resource. I believe that's by Ibram Kendi. Online resources, racialequitytools.org. And yeah, like I said, go to that equity and justice page. Metro United Way is set up. There are many, many resources that you can take a look at there that will really ground you in, going deeper when it comes to the equity conversation.
Fantastic. You had me at Michael Eric Dyson.
Yeah, really looking forward to that one.
Yes, for sure. So with your broad experience, and it definitely sounds like the work you're doing is poised internally and externally. Could you tell me one or two things that employees have been reluctant to come to you about, even though that's why you and your office is there?
Sure. So we've, in Metro United Way, we have dove deep when it comes to diversity and inclusion, getting it right internally, bringing, this conversation to our external partners. And so that consists of many different steps. And so we have training internally, we have, projects and research, we have resources for our employees. Even though we have all that, it's still a really tough conversation a lot of times. And we talk about reluctance to come to me. I would say that we've come a long way, but I think it could be tough at a time like this for our white brothers and sisters, as far as their comfortability with these sort of conversations, just the feeling of being trampled on, or that guilt, those types of things. And I would say that months ago, there was very little communication when it came to that, even though I'm there as a resource. But that's really changed, and we've got a diversity and inclusion training series that we call it's Leading in Color, that we collaborated with Catapult Consulting on, and we had that series going on. And one way that we've sort of made it more comfortable for the feedback to come is that we have completely anonymous feedback resources where employees can fill out an evaluation. It does not identify who they are, but those evaluations come to us in the equity department. It helps us to improve on our equity initiatives, but then also it gives the employees a chance to give open-ended responses as well. So it's really opened up the dialogue. It's really improved us as an organization, and I think it's made our employees feel more comfortable as well.
Wonderful. So what advice, so we talked about your organization and some other organizations have a separate diversity department, but what if an employee is working at a place and there's not a separate department, possibly just a HR department, and they are interested in starting the conversation or maybe a committee, right? Is there something small or a bit of advice you can give someone so they could bring that to their employer, or maybe just a few things that they could use as a resource to kind of start those conversations within their organization? What would be the basics to start to have a conversation about diversity or equity?
Sure. So I'll start by saying that when it comes to DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion, for any organization, diversity is there. It's already there.
Okay.
Because diversity is simply our differences. It's what makes us unique as individuals. However, equity and inclusion are something totally different. And I would say at this point in the year 2020, if a company or an organization is not focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, you are setting yourself up for failure, whatever that may look like. And so if an individual or if an organization is looking to take a first step or to get into the basics when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, first you have to understand that equity is the intentional inclusion of everyone in society. Equity is achieved when systemic, institutional, and historical barriers based on race, gender, sexual orientation, and other identities are dismantled and no longer predict outcomes when it comes to education, economics, health. So, for my role, that means infusing an equity lens throughout the internal and external work led by the organization, like I said before. But if someone's getting started in this work, some basic steps that you want to either suggest or you want to implement would be to first ground the case for change in your mission and values, whether that's an internal committee or whether that's an organization as a whole. So if you're taking that to leadership, you want to make sure that you ground that case for change in the mission and values. You want to let them know how there's going to be a return on investment if you go down that equity road. And really, this is about investing in people. It's investing in their goals and aspirations, and not focusing on their differences and their their disparities or their deficiencies. You want to ground the case for change. You want to build a team and map out your process, getting from where you are now to where you would like to be. You want to bring the champions together. So you want to bring together a team that is committed and dedicated in launching that process. Like I said a couple of questions ago, you want to prepare yourself, definitely prepare yourself, ground yourself in some of the fundamentals and some of those learning resources. And then you want to build shared language and analysis as you're going forward through that process. That kind of gives you just a start, but this is all about investing in people, and it's going to improve individuals. It's going to develop you personally, but it's also going to improve your organization as a whole.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So just during our conversation, our listeners had a chance to learn about what a successful diversity, equity, and inclusion department and office looks like, right? They also had a chance to learn about really defining what DE&I really is, right? The differences of them. There was an opportunity to learn about some of the benefits of participating in these wonderful, colorful conversations. And also you gave some great advice about how to build and start those conversations within an organization if it's already not existing. So I want to say thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure our job seekers and our employees gathered a lot of great information, very specific resources to prep them for these conversations with people in their workplace. So I want to say thank you. Was there anything else that you wanted to add to the conversation before we close today?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me. Thank you for your willingness to open up and have this conversation. You know, I guess, you know, in order to bring awareness, but then to also help job seekers, you know, on what to prepare for and how to go about this tough conversation. So thank you for that. Thanks for having me. And definitely, I would encourage people to visit metrounitedway.org, look at that equity and justice page. And I look forward to partnering with you in the future.
Absolutely. And to those that are listening or watching us continue this conversation, join us in the comment sections of whatever social media platform you're watching this. Thank you for joining. Have a good day.
Thanks for tuning in to KW Conversations. Visit KentuckianaWorks.org to find labor market data, resources for job seekers and employers, and much more.